Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Man's Hour, episode 4. T or A. You've heard of rank punditry. Well, today we're doing some masculine punditry of the rankest order. I'm joined by a long-term friend of mine, Sixer. We're coming up on, what is it, man? Like a decade we've known each other now at this point. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, we're getting close, my good friend Red Hawk. As you mentioned, I will be going by Sixer at least while on here, and it's really a pleasure, my friend. It's been a long time coming. I've been thoroughly following your Twitter and your previous man hours, so I'm excited to join you today.
Yeah. You know, we've been having these kinds of conversations on and off for the longest of times, and I really wanted to have you on here for this discussion specifically because we were having this talk, and I was like, you know what? This is absolutely something we need to have live because we have these kinds of awesome based conversations, when we're just chilling with ourselves all the time. So I was like, all right, now I gotta have him on to discuss the tits or ass question.
Yes, the age-old question, and I am very much looking forward to discussing pros and cons of both with you.
Yeah, all right. So I guess the first place for us to start here is, the classic argument is, when guys are looking for when we're rating our chicks, it's like kind of like an icebreaker question when you get into a bar with a bunch of dudes, to test them. He's like, are you a tits guy? Or are you an ass guy? So I guess we'll just start from the top. What are you looking for first, man? What is your preference? Are you a tits man or an ass man?
Well, you know the answer to this, but I suppose the audience does not. For the longest time in my younger years, I was absolutely a tits guy. However, as I've matured and as I began, once I got past 16, 17 years old, 18 years old, and started having sex much more regularly, my appreciation for the ass grew proportionally to how much I want the ass to grow generally. So I'm much more in the ass camp at this time.
Yeah. The thing for me is like I'm generally a tits guy as well, in the sense of, you know, th- they're just more fun. There's more things you could do with them. In my opinion. So that I generally go for tits first. But we were having this discussion not too long ago, and you brought up a fantastic point and trying to argue with me, like about the ass specifically. So why don't you why don't you tell me what you were trying to argue with me with that one? Why should guys like be looking for the ass of a chick as opposed to the tits?
I believe I've brought up a few different points on this, but one in particular for me is the evolutionary desire for those childbearing hips that I think directly correlates to ass. That is a big one for me. And additionally, I think that the ass is more indicative of the healthiness and the general fitness habits of the female. Some women are just fortunately born with great tits. Some are unfortunately born with not great tits. But the ass is really workout and fitness dependent, and I think that that can be very indicative of the type of woman, if it's more than a one night stand, that you could end up engaging with.
Yeah, I think this argument was probably the best that you presented to me for this discussion because, like you say, if a chick has a really nice ass, she's absolutely 100% fit. It's not something you could fake. We've got like push-up bras and the boob implants and all this kind of stuff, but you really can't fake like if a chick has a really nice ass. It does require some work. So I do think that is probably the best point in that argument. What do you think?
No, I agree. And that is a huge part for me. Because as you know, and as you also agree with, having a woman who is physically healthy and maintains that is an absolute must in the dating sphere.
Oh, absolutely. Like, if you don't have your looks in order as a woman, you can immediately be, discounted for any, relationship status whatsoever. You have to have looks as a chick. Looks get you in the door, but then personality and compliance and whatnot makes us want to keep you around. So, we're already working at a baseline here. You got to have, the attraction cues.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then, as we have discussed at on a number of occasions, and I'm sure you are going to bring this up soon, it is not just about the tits and it is not just about the ass. The most important thing is the ratios between tits to waistline and ass to waistline. Um, that is absolutely critical, as we have discussed on a number of occasions. And for me and for you as well, neither of us are bigger guys. We're both a little on the thin to average side. So it's even, I think, more apparent for us, compared to some of our other friends who are a bit bigger, to have a very thin and fit woman, because the idea of having a woman with the same, or God forbid, bigger waist size than us is certainly unappealing.
Yeah, for sure. And just for reference, I'm sitting at a 6 foot tall and a buck 55 currently. I want to put on a little bit more muscle. And you're what? You're like 6'2", and then probably what, like a buck 70 or something, buck 80.
My friend, I'm about 6'4" and a buck 85. Although my weight does fluctuate more, as you know, depending on how often I'm running and getting to the gym. But yes, we are definitely both tall and on the thin to average side.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Bringing up that question about the boobs to waist ratio. This is definitely something that we brought up many times, particularly as it relates to a couple of your exes. Yeah, I think you know the ones that I'm talking about, and then the chick that you're currently dating and stuff like that. They definitely have their boobs are definitely smaller, than the first thing you're looking for. Oh, she's got really big boobs, but the actual ratio of the hips is what makes these women that you've dated and the one you're currently dating very, very attractive. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you recall, my first long-term girlfriend, the one who shall not be named, before I learned anything about game, objectively had the biggest breasts out of anyone I've dated. However, she was also objectively the least attractive, due to the fact that, in proportion to her waist, it was pretty average. Whereas now I a girls with much more average sized breasts, but because their waists are, you know, for the by and large incredibly thin, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's funny, my mind being taken back to the woman that shall not be named. That was that was an interesting time. But we don't need to dwell on the failures of our past and everything like that. I'll say this, as you know, like the current chick that I'm working with, definitely, again, tall and slender, and with a pair that is pretty nice for the ratio of the hips, but not traditionally, very big breasts. So we seem to be reaching a theme here between the two of us, but great minds think alike, as it were.
Yes, yes. No, unfortunately, I'd be interested to think if any of our other friends would have a different view. Although by and large, they tend to agree with us on this. I don't. None of our friends date fatty, so it's it's hard to find those differing views amongst us.
Yeah, yeah, very true, very true. I mean, everyone's had their slump busting days, as it were, but for long term purposes, you will definitely get picked on. But no, there's definitely some cases of us in our group settling for the old classic, no one's ugly after 2 a.m. So shit happens, as it were.
No one's ugly after 2 a.m. and several drinks, I believe, is the correct adage. But yes, we have all been there, unfortunately. But again, these are the mistakes we learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting. I've mentioned this on previous streams before, that most of the guys that I know, like in my personal life, really don't know much about game, or really know much about my own success in game. Basically, it's very. I enjoy talking to you so much about this kind of stuff, because you and I are both switched on in this way, and the conversations we have, like not just what we're having right now, but off air and everything like that, are definitely very enjoyable to me, because it's rare to find guys that are switched on to these, intersexual dynamics, red pill issues, whatever the fuck you want to call them. So
No, I 100% agree. Our friend group is certainly lacking in that a bit. However, what I will say is I think that the reason you and I have some more success in these spheres, especially for myself, after, we mentioned my first relationship, is you got to get burned to learn what fire is. You have to, I think, have some tough, difficult relationships. You have to really feel bad about yourself, and you have to have that happen to think, what do I need to do to improve? How do I change this? And once you start going down that rabbit hole and you keep going and you come out the other side and it's a world of difference, I think it's a lot easier for us than, one of our other friends, one who lives a little closer to me, who I don't think has ever really had a bad or difficult relationship. But as a result, seems to just gloss over anytime we bring up frame and seems to be unable to establish that in his own relationship, and I think we see him suffering for it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We've had different discussions about this, off air and everything, and his girl has definitely gotten pretty handsy with the two of us on multiple occasions, when we're in these kinds of situations. But this just goes to show you, and this is, central maxim in like all of the red pill spheres, that, you can't red pill your friends. You have to red pill yourself. And it almost always comes from, we call it getting zeroed out. So you pretty much hit like a rock bottom, you either have like a really horrible breakup or a really, horrible, something really bad has to happen to you for, your psyche to be shocked into taking in some kind of new information. Because viewing women with the lens that you and I do, it's definitely not what you're taught. So you basically have to be like deprogrammed in order to figure out, the actual, truth, the true nature of everything.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. That term or phrase you used, what, bottoming out, was it?
Yeah, zeroing out. Rollo Tomasi covered that in his first book, first Rational Male book, and yeah, it's one of the common terms we use. I know you're not switched on to like the actual like online material like I am, but yeah, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. Like I took more of a I don't know, I guess you could call it like an analytical approach to everything. And but there's multiple ways to get here. It'd be foolish to say like, oh, if you haven't read like a Rational Male book, you can't be good at game. It's fucking stupid.
No, absolutely. And I do believe, as you said, there are different ways to skin a cat. We certainly arrived at this point somewhat differently because, as you mentioned, I haven't read anything by Rollo or really anyone in your spheres. I don't know the terminology outside of things that I've learned through you. For me, it was more, zeroing out. Um, and then just, taking some time to be introspective and really learning what works. And I think the relationship I had after the first one, the one with the tallest girl I've dated, to avoid use of names, she would just wore her feelings on her face so well, and it was so apparent when I would exhibit different behaviors how the responses would be. Um, that it was really just a great self learning tool. Um, she indirectly taught me exactly how she works, and then I found out after we ended things that that's how most women are. Obviously not all of them, as I like to say there are exceptions to every rule, but it
Yeah,
certainly has a
it's still fucking infuriating when we're having our conversations because you always have to interject and come in, when we're having like some serious, high level thinking, and then you gotta interject in with your, vaginal energy, and just be
uh,
like, oh well, what about this exception to this thing? Like, God,
I don't think, and I know I do it a little more than I should. I don't think exceptions need to be put in every place, but it is important to note. And I'm sure you, me, and anyone who listens to this knows, you will have women and men who don't fit the general dynamic, but still have a very healthy relationship. A couple of friends of ours who we saw this past weekend, I would argue, do not have necessarily this dynamic, but I think that their relationship is one of the healthier ones we know of.
Yeah, yeah. It depends on who you're talking about, because we were hanging out with a lot of people over the past weekend. I mentioned on Twitter that we were at a bachelor party over the weekend, so that was interesting to see like some dynamics at play and everything like that. But Yeah, it's interesting when we have these talks and we talk about the dynamics because it's interesting how I love seeing a guy who is successful in the game, like yourself, who is not switched on to the material. But when I come in with the material that I'm switched on and we converge in the same place, and I basically like will throw a term at you, and you're like, oh, I know what that is. I haven't like put a phrase or turn a phrase to it, but we both arrive at the same place, which tells me that the information is good, if that makes any sense. If you have multiple people who don't come from the same kind of spheres all converging on one point, it tells you that there's something there.
I 100% agree. I think the first time we really noticed it was you were describing the concept of setting frame, because obviously that's one of the more basic concepts in your spheres. And I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, this is the way. This is certainly the way. Whenever I've gone about it this way, I've seen the most success. The successful relationships I see, the most successful guys who run game that I'm friends with handle it in this way where they establish their frame. And it was very very amusing in one way, but really just the as you said, the idea of reinforcing what we know to be correct with independent confirmation is always nice.
Yeah, yeah. I know it's a little like off topic to what we're discussing here, but we could circle back in here. It's my show and I can do whatever the fuck I want. You were we were on a call maybe God, it must have been like 1 or 2 weeks ago, and you were describing me this very good circumstance where you were with your current chick and you about a boundary setting and frame setting right there. You want to describe that a little bit here? Because I don't know if you've been watching, but the past couple streams I did, we were talking about relationship dynamics and relationship tactics and stuff like that. We didn't necessarily dive into frame, but I think it's definitely something that would be useful to the guys listening. So why don't you throw out that story for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was we probably talked about it 2 weeks ago, but this probably happened 3 or 4 weeks ago. And my current girlfriend, long-term relationship that I'm in about a year now, had one of her what I will lovingly call her irrational female moments. And this has been few or far between with her, which is, I think, why we've lasted as long as we have. And it was about, a certain political individual. We don't need to get into too much of that, but she just had this visceral reaction where it just became completely irrational. And it caught me off guard. And then, I sat her down afterwards and was like, this can't happen. And we talked through it, and without again, dovetailing the conversation into politics, it went through logically. Okay, well, you don't have that reaction with this person or that person or this person, and at the end of the day, they're all similar scumbags. So the way you reacted to the one scumbag is irrational. And it was a much longer conversation than that. We took the stepping stones to get there, but it was almost like I was asking her leading questions. So you agree with this, so you agree with this, so you agree with this, and you can see the light bulb going off as we're going through this, where she realizes, wait, this was totally irrational. And I got her to agree that is irrational. Now, I know in the ideal situation, and you've touched on this, it can be done much quicker. However, my style generally, and we did arrive to the place was we got the compliance that was necessary, and we avoided it becoming a problem in the future. I feel like sometimes it'd be easy to just roll your eyes whenever the person you're with says something ridiculous, but I think nipping things in the bud is critical to ensuring there are no chinks in the frame, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So often, guys will just think like, oh, if I just capitulate to her on a certain issue, then that means she won't bring it up again. It's like, no, that's not how it works. You got to hold, you got to set boundaries with women. So often, and I've had so much confirmation from this from my friends online that are female and everything. And it's hilarious to me when they just give away the game so openly. And women so often just need to be told that you're being fucking retarded and shut up. It really is just that simple sometimes. And now granted, it's easier for like guys like you and me to do this specifically when you either are spinning plates and you have multiple options, or in your case currently, when you've been with a girl, what, you're like over a year now, and then you guys were basically like fooling around for, what was it, like 6 or 7 months before that, or whatever the fuck it was. You have a
That's
lot of
about right. That's
yeah,
about right.
yeah, you have a lot of equity already like built into the relationship, so it's a lot easier to set boundaries and everything. And then not to get too into it, but you are a good looking guy who's very successful in his career as well, so that definitely helps with the situation as well for frame setting purposes.
It does, and I do agree. The dominant person, the leader in the relationship, does need to sometimes just tell the other person, chill, like shut up, you're wrong. But the caveat is you have to be right. And I think you use the example of having a strong frame and being that strong man, the leader in a relationship isn't come get me a beer and take your tits out. It isn't that all the time.
It
I
can
should say.
be, yeah.
Yeah. I went to correct myself, but no, it's about leading and knowing what you think and what they think and what is right. And you can't just, you have to make sure you're right. You got to be careful because one thing that women love to do is if they can prove you wrong, they will. And they will try to. And you have to be right. It is a tremendous responsibility, a tremendous endeavor in a relationship to keep your frame. You have to be right about things. You have to be careful with what you say because you have to be right.
Yeah, I think I'd put it in like even slightly even different terms than that. It's not necessarily just about being right. It's just about being confident in your choices and leading. Like even if you make a mistake, you just own the fact. Like, yeah, that was a wrong choice, but I got this shit. I've got it taken care of, and I'm still gonna fix it and take care of it. You know, so it's not necessarily just being like, oh, I have to be right in this argument at any time. It's not necessarily about that, because you can deflect with multiple tactics that I've discussed on other streams. You could sometimes you could just completely agree and amplify a situation. A chick is flipping out at something, and this is actually an example that literally happened to me last night. It's a good one to give right here. uh Texting a girl right now, and she says, oh, you just treat me like an object. And then I just completely agree and amplify the situation to be like, oh yeah, yeah, 100% for sure. That's all I see in you. There's absolutely no reason, nothing else outside of that. And then it just gets a giggle out of her because it's just so farcical on its face.
No, absolutely. I tend to agree with that quite a bit. Sorry, I thought I had a work call pop up on my phone, but it was not a work call, so I got off track a little bit there. I apologize, my friend.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Those bastards, they always want to get you when you're outside of the office. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, it never ends. But I'm compensated well enough that I will deal with being a wage slave as long as I need to.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Righto. Well, we diverged from the topic a little bit here, but let's bring something else up here. Let me actually, I want to pull this up because this was making the rounds on Twitter today. Here, let me hold on here. Let me share this damn screen here. Uh, there we go. Here we go. So, um, this was tweeted out earlier today, by Lover's Guide on Twitter, and she was bringing up, this body right here, like abs on women, yes or no. So for me personally, I responded to this, and Paul from Apex Mindset, he said something as well. He's like, hot or not, and I basically responded like, I wouldn't call this chick hot, but I obviously still would. Like when I think of like a chick is hot, I think far more of like the feminine feminine beauty with the long hair and makeup and a dress and stuff like that. Like this chick is obviously attractive, but I don't know if I would put her in the hot category. Would still absolutely bang. But what do you think about that? Abs on women?
So there is definitely more definition than I would like. Obviously, a flat stomach is ideal, and personally, I would take these abs over even a moderate amount of pudge. Um, I would call her hot personally. Um, but I do. It's almost like the veins on the forearm are what getting me even more than the abs. Look at those things.
Yeah, it's it's something. Like I can't imagine like if this chick was to do like a classic like Arnie pose, like show off her biceps or something, it just wouldn't look good. I mean like this chick definitely has good waist and a good ass and stuff like that, and you know it, again like obviously we would both still bang this chick, obviously.
100%.
Yeah, but that was just what I was getting at there. That question was crossing my brain, today when I was scrolling through Twitter, as one tends to do. I've got another one right here as well. One of my buddies, Aaron Clary, he's always putting this out there as well. He constantly is tweeting these pictures of, chicks from the past that are way more attractive. So, like, uh, here we go. You know, there we go. That's now obviously, this is a post for the camera a little bit here. It's not typically, what a chick is like wearing when she's out at the golf course and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a very good looking girl with a very nice rack. Absolutely.
I would love to hit a hole in one with her, but no. 100%. I mean, she is very much posed for it, but and you can obviously her waist is a bit obscured, but you can tell she's thin. You can tell she has a nice rack, gorgeous symmetrical face. 100% would, obviously, and I think we would agree that despite the girl on the last slide being more physically fit, this woman is a good amount more attractive.
Yeah, absolutely true. Very true. And the other thing as well is like it'd be nicer if she was actually like standing up. So again, we could see, the golden ratio as it were. But there definitely is a thing as too big of tits. That's absolutely something that there is. So again, like, big tits on a fat girl don't count, So there
Of
definitely is such a thing as too much.
Of course, but in terms of, a thin woman, it is incredibly rare for a woman on the moderate to thin side to have tits that are too big unless they're fake.
Yeah, that's true.
It can happen, but it is just so rare that it's so far the exception.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's certainly better than, what we're dealing with these days. Like oh, here we go. Typical chick right here. Ignore the vasectomy part, but yeah, like there we go. This chick's got a big rack, but look at this monstrosity that's going on here. Like, oh man, this is what's out there for you, man. Just pull up your Tinder right now and she's available for you.
Always, hold on, I got to go text my girlfriend. I love her. If this is the alternative, I got to make sure, I'm safe.
Fucking simp. Yeah. But no, that's oh my god, it's just the audacity of this chick as well. That proof of vasectomy will be required. I mean, you gotta love her optimism, man. You gotta,
Well, what gets me with this, and what gets me with the dating sphere in general is, being a taller, thinner guy. I don't really suffer from this, but so many, a few of my guy friends and so many even women I know will, as women say, got to be 6 foot, got to be 6 foot, got to be 6 foot, but then to critique the waist size of women is just seen as so taboo in society. It's always irked me, and I'm sure that everyone listening to this knows that that is a double standard. But I see the dot 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 on their profile, and I'm waiting for the must be 6 foot tall to get on this ride or something, and
yeah,
I simply can't.
yeah. I'm sure the injection of leftist politics and just all around non-compliance, will be an absolute winner with this one as well. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a double standard that's never going away. But and also just because a chick says like, oh, looking for a 6 foot kind of deal, I always say that game trumps everything, man. I mean, there's short guys out there that are getting laid. There's, fatter guys that are getting laid. There's, guys with ugly faces that are getting laid. There's guys of all races and creeds that are out there getting laid somehow. So it's definitely possible, but game is absolutely the most important part, in my opinion.
No, I 100% agree with that, and it can work both ways to the extent that women can really up themselves if they are self-aware and can really bring out a vibrant personality. We have a mutual friend, one
Stick
who
it in the
actually,
private chat.
yeah,
Stick it in the,
yeah,
yeah,
I got you, yeah, who
Oh
now has
yeah. Oh yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
lost some weight and has become incredibly attractive. But even when she was a little bit more to the moderate or bigger side, her personality was so vibrant and she was so self-aware that she certainly upped her stock. And it is something that, obviously, this is the man's hour and that's the advice we're giving, but any women watching this should know, if you are self-aware of what you look like, self-aware of your pros and cons, and just act with confidence in this vibrant energy, you can also have much more success than you otherwise would.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely true. And to bring up the chick that you were talking about, yeah, that's 100% true. And conveniently, she just got married recently, and to a pretty a nice dude. So good for her to finally understand what was going on. And her advice would serve other females that you and I know very, very well. If they were to actually take advantage of that, because
Absolutely, including two of her friends that we are also acquainted with. I think if they followed her path, it would behoove them both greatly.
oh yeah, yeah, for sure, particularly one of them. But um, but yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you, and I keep saying it all the time. Is like looks get you in the door if you're a chick, but having a good personality, being compliant, being just an asset to a man's life is what makes us keep you around. So like you can't just be legs, breasts, and ass. You absolutely need to be pleasant to be around. Otherwise, we'll just use you for sex.
100%. Or even if we, attempt to start that relationship, it simply will not last because it simply will not work. You have to understand what the other person is looking for, and you can't expect them to change what they are looking for. That will never work. If you know what they are looking for going in, like a guy with a strong frame does, then you will have success. And if a woman knows what a man is looking for going in and is willing to grant that in all aspects, obviously sexual, but also in other ones, as in not always being up our asses about stuff, you can have much more success than you otherwise would.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely true. So, ladies, stay thin. And, you don't need to think that you need to have, massive cans or big ass for guys to find you attractive. Thin is absolutely the most important thing. Thin and long hair, I'd say. I've tweeted this out many a times that short hair is a crime. It's really, really hard to pull off if you're a chick to have short hair. Just go with the long. It's so much more attractive, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's more attractive. Like, yes, if a woman is a 10 and cuts her hair, she's not going to be a 4, and if a woman's a 4 and grows her hair out, she's not going to jump up to an 8 or a 9. But why put yourself in that position where you're abjectly making yourself less attractive? I mean, if you're comfortable
Because
doing
I'm a
that.
strong, independent woman, man.
Yeah, it is a shame that short hair is promoted more in media because it's by and large, it's just less attractive. It's a damn shame.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think one of these slides I picked here has all right, there we go. See that? No, that's not bad. Right there. I mean, we can't really see it from the back and anything to see how much further down it goes, but I can't imagine it goes much lower than that, just based on this photo right here. But yeah, another good looking
That's
chick.
absolutely, and this is the perfect example of what we were talking about earlier. You don't need to have a massive rack or a massive ass.
These are great for this chick's waist size. These are
Exactly,
wonderful.
exactly. That is perfectly all that is needed. I feel like she has a similar body type to the girl I'm currently seeing, and to me, that's
She's
exactly what I'm
definitely
looking for.
she's definitely taller than your current chick, though.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I was mostly referring to the golden ratio, but yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Both of us have like a history of taller chicks. I mean, I've always liked long legs on a woman. That's
Yeah.
just me. I know you and I've talked about this a bunch, like that I do enjoy taller girls, but maybe that's just a luxury of both you and me, like being above like the 6 foot area, you know.
Yes.
So it definitely
Yes.
opens up our pools of women a lot more.
Yes. And
Um,
to all the listeners out there, I will personally testify that while Red Hawk says he is 6 foot, he is one of the rare men who is actually 6 foot when he is claiming to be 6 foot. I will personally attest. I know it has become quite a meme that any guy who says he's 6 foot could be anywhere from 5'9" to 6 foot. So you are
yeah,
certainly on the upper end.
Yeah, it's wild because I mentioned this before, but when I went to the American event in February, I'm usually one of the taller guys in the room. But when I got there, almost like half the people there were taller than myself, which was absolutely bananas for me. It was very different. As I mentioned before on previous streams, that Radlib is tall, Turnip is tall. There were many of the other guests there were tall. Paul Fahrenheit is very tall. So it just goes to show you the kinds of guys we're rolling with in our circles. Physiognomy definitely checks out. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being tall on a guy, it's certainly a blessing, and I do feel bad for men who don't have that because it's completely out of the control of the guy. But that goes back to what you said earlier. You just gotta, have more game and set more frame. You gotta play with the cards you're dealt, but you can certainly draw more cards if you're adept enough.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you're definitely it's not a straight jacket. Like if you're a short guy, you're not locked in to that. There's definitely other ways you can, compensate. Your game as it were. Just if you have you know, that classic I don't give a fuck attitude and you know how to talk to people and know how to be pleasant and you know what you want and make some decent money on the side, you can definitely slay. I mentioned this so many times before, but already if you're like an average weight in America, and by average I mean like an actual acceptable body weight for health purposes, not the average of the states, because the average is a fat ass. But if you are like an acceptable weight, you're already in the top 20% of men in America, just because your competition is a bunch of overweight fat asses. So, if you could just get yourself to a decent size, you're going to slay if you, get your, verbal skills in order, as it were.
No, absolutely, and we've certainly discussed ad nauseum how much of a shame it is that men in America, by and large, over time have become weaker, less assertive, less strong, both physically and mentally, and how women have become less healthy as well, had less strong attitude, or strong as in feminine attitudes. It's a shame that we're headed in that direction by and large, but it's also a blessing to those of us who recognize what people look for inherently, men and women both, because it's so much easier to stand out as a high value individual, I think, than it used to be. I think now if you're a guy that has a strong frame, good game, and a good amount of testosterone, you are ahead of the curve already. And if you're not a fat ass, whereas I don't know if 30, 40 years ago that was necessarily the case. So while it may be bad for society, it's good for the individual competing.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've mentioned this previously. Like the inadvertent cause of feminism is that it's basically become the age of the Chad. Like society has coddled men for so long and put the world on easy mode for them that it's easier than ever to separate. The strong from the weak, as it were. It's going to be very, very much the haves and the have-nots. And I've mentioned this stat many times before on previous streams, but we're rapidly approaching the point where 40% of guys under the age of 30 are completely sexless, which is ridiculous to think of in any other previous point in history. But it just goes to show you, if you put in the work, you can absolutely be very, very successful in this sphere.
Yeah, if you work out a couple of times a week, have a good job and a strong frame, you're in the top 25% of men right there. And that is not hard to do. Any single individual can do that. Um, and it's just what people want. It's always been what people want. It will always be what people want.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the women I've been with and dated for a time have been much more in the feminist leftist sphere. And obviously, as I've dated them and over the relationship that has been quote a bit, certainly got them a little bit more into a reasonable spot. But it goes to show even those more far left people still have that desire. While the tendrils of feminism and disliking the conservative man are out there in society, that's instincts are instincts. What people want is what people want. Um, and if you can play on that, you can have a ton of success.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure, absolutely. I mean, one of the issues I see a lot in this sphere specifically is that number one, guys are first of all they're looking, for a chick that absolutely 100% matches like all their pre-requirements in the sense of shares the same hobbies, shares the same political views, shares, the same religion, all these kinds of things. And you definitely need like some kind of basis to work from. Like, I'm not encouraging guys to go, I'm not encouraging guys to go find this and see if you could fix her. Like I could fix her, bro. Like that's not what I'm saying. You definitely do need to have some kind of base, but most chicks these days are borderline, they're just basic bitch leftists, and there's nothing you can do to change that. But what you can do is that when they're in your frame in a relationship, you can absolutely morph them and mold them to be what you want them to be, with little difficulty once you figure out what you're doing. Now that does take practice, and it takes time, and you and I still struggle with that, to some extent, obviously, like it's not, it's not exactly, a perfect thing to do all the time, because of like all the programming we've been raised with throughout the years. But yeah, like, once you figure out what you're doing with this kind of shit, it's just like the example you were giving with us earlier when, your girl's bitching about Trump. It's like, no, you're not going to do that. And, here's why. And I'm not going to put up with it. And then, we'll see how she adapts to the situation. She can either comply or goodbye.
Exactly. And I just said I don't want there to be this thing that we're fighting about all the time. I won't stick around if there's this thing we're fighting about all the time. I understand that in any relationship there will be arguments to some degree, but if it's a reoccurring thing, I'm not going to stick around for that. It sounds miserable. Um, I've seen it in other relationships where they're just fighting all the time about the same damn thing. And you have to get ahead of that, or else it will, and then it's, oh, well, we're just bickering about this. Well, then you bicker about it once before bed, and then she doesn't want to have sex with you. And then you're annoyed you didn't get sex, so you don't buy her flowers. And it keeps spiraling. And it's so easy if you let these little insidious things fester to lose your frame and to lose what you have built. And that is such a critical thing to be cognizant of.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, what about say like, well, we're on the discussion of frame. I mean, we've kind of morphed away from the tits and ass discussion, but here's something that's kind of similar to that. What if like your chick is starting to gain weight on you a little bit or something like that? How do you go about enforcing like beauty standards or sex standards as well, like on your girl? I know you and I have had multiple conversations about this, and I think you correct me if I'm wrong. Did you not have a conversation about this with your current chick like not too long ago? Like sex standards and stuff like that.
No, absolutely. That's something that I would hit early and often, and there's two parts of that. So first, um, we'll start with the second one first. Sex standards. That is something that another couple of friends of ours, a couple that I actually set up, who you're familiar with, the guy simply lost all frame with sex standards, and it went downhill so quickly. And I saw it up close and personal.
Oh yeah, that's a
Um,
sad relationship to look at right now. That really
yes,
sucks.
damn shame, and maybe we'll circle back to it. But in terms of sex standards, it's so easy early on, because early on, if the relationship has any chance of success, you're going to be fucking like rabbits. You're just starting. Everything's fresh and new. And I think one thing to harp on is, rather than say, yeah, I want a blowjob every week for forever, it's, I don't want our sex standards to change. I want you to want me and to put forth as much effort as you do week one, as you do at the end of year one, as you do at the end of year 10. And I think if you set the frame up like that, it's so easy to enforce, because then it puts this idea of, this is the standard is the standard, we will not deviate from the standard. And obviously it's it is on the guy a bit to ensure that the woman is enjoying it, and you're introducing new things, because Lord knows it doesn't take much for us to enjoy it. But you have to set that sex standard early, and you have to make sure that it is clear, because there are so many women who, first month of dating, you get a blowjob every other night and they're swallowing, and then a year and a half in, they don't want to put that thing in their mouth anymore. And you got to be careful of it, and you can't let it will be a slow decline. They will chip away at it, and you've got to make sure that that decline never starts.
Yeah, it'll be a decline if you let it. And that, comes from many things. You just not enforcing the boundary, at the start saying, oh, this is the standard, we're going to uphold it. Or if you start being lax on your own standards as a guy, in the sense of, oh, you start letting yourself go, and then your woman isn't attracted to you and she doesn't want, to bang you anymore and stuff like that. We've mentioned this many a time. And, this is something that a lot of guys really struggle with, especially when they first start the space. But you really do have to understand, if there's any fault in the relationship, it's basically your fault. Like as the guy, you really just have to treat women as like the children in the room. They're children in the room that you really can't, punish in the same way you can with men. You could use different tactics, but as it goes to the actual relationship, if something is, being fucked up, it's on you. It's not on the chick.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then I do want to circle back because you had talked about two things. One was sex standards, and the other was beauty standards. What would you do if the person you're dating got fat? And I think that people don't get fat for no reason. I know some people like to pretend they do, but quite frankly, unless you developed a significant medical condition, you don't. So whenever you start dating this person, if they're not fat, look at their habits. They're probably, running or going to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. They probably eat pretty healthy. They're not going to get fat unless those habits change. The easiest way to set the frame up with that is if you see those habits changing, you talk about it and you're like, I want to see you be healthy. I want to see you be your best self. Let's get back on that habit. Because it's easy for anyone, guy or girl, to it's really cold out. I'm not gonna run. Oh, I'm gonna order this greasy takeout, and it can spiral. And if you frame it as a health issue, it is so easy and it clicks so much. They want to be healthy. Everyone wants to be healthy. Everyone always wants to be healthy. And if you frame it as I'm attracted to healthy women, I'm attracted to you because you're healthy and that's sexy, then they're gonna stay thin and they're gonna keep that ass firm. Like they're going to do that. And it's so much easier to present it that way than it is to just say, well, don't gain weight. Obviously that's more straightforward and to the point. But as you know, I'm a big I choose my words carefully in how I frame things. And I do think if you frame it as a health issue, you will never run into that issue and you will never really have an issue bringing it up.
Yeah, we definitely have different tactics for this, and that's kind of because we're in different situations. Like you're in much more of a long-term relationship, and I, still spin plates, even though working on like a main chick, as it were, right now. So definitely like I'm far more blunt with things than you are, and we've definitely had discussions about this in the past. You know, uh, so yeah, I'm just thinking about funny things we've mentioned in the past, but yeah, let's get back to another one of these here before we run out of time here. Let's see. Right, there we go. Oh, see, short hair again. Um, very borderline for me. Like I wouldn't want it much shorter than that, if at all.
I wouldn't want it any shorter than that, but to me, that's still fine. I think to me, it's not so much that it's short hair, but it's still a very feminine aesthetic. It's a more classically feminine aesthetic. But I think the issue that we have with hair when it's short is that it's not feminine, not just that it's short. And I'd say that this is a much
Mhm.
more feminine style.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Absolutely. And then again, nice rack.
Incredible, incredible ratios. She's so thin, and then she has clearly has defined abs as well, but they're flat. They're not the muscle abs. It's just a flat stomach. And to me, this is the ideal. This is like the pinnacle where you don't have these muscles, but you are as thin as you can be. That is body wise. I guess her ass could be a bit bigger, but from the waist to the neck, that is damn near a peak woman to me.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely very fit. I mean, kind of strong legs, but not a very big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like meh. They could be a little bit more thin, but you know what? Like, here's the thing as well is like guys will be like checking out chicks like pretty much on the day. When like we're just walking up and down the street and everything like that. But women are always complaining about like the unrealistic beauty standards and stuff that men have. But we know this from online data as well that most men find the majority of women attractive. And women make this mistake all the time, thinking that like, oh, you got to be super duper supermodel to even get the attention of men. And I've mentioned this before. It's like looks get you in the door, personality keeps you around. I mean, you have to have looks, you absolutely need to, but you don't need to be like supermodel smoke show. In fact, and you and I have talked about this a bunch as well, is that we prefer to go for chicks that are like sevens or eights because they're less of a hassle. Like a chick who's a 9 or a 10 is very very difficult to work with and tends to come with craziness and all sorts of other bullshit that are attached with them and just make your life a complete hassle. So
You
don't
took
think
you
that.
took the words right out of my mouth. That is exactly what
Mhm.
I was going to say in response. in response to you there. And it's just you're 100% correct with it. You first articulated the idea, and I could not agree more with that. At the end of the day, I'm a big fan of the 0 1. You either find her attractive or you don't, and if you find her attractive, then it's does she fall into your frame?
Yeah, yeah, hot or not,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, there's the kind to play with and the kind you keep as well. Like there's definitely some, extremely attractive girls, like I was mentioning earlier, that you absolutely would, have sex with because, guys would have sex with the majority of women if they had the opportunity to. But as a chick that you'd actually want to take seriously, spend your time with, invest your resources in, and stuff like that, like absolutely got to have that personality and the compliance that comes along with it.
Yeah, and then the standard for attractiveness is also higher for an LTR. For a one night stand, you have to find her attractive at 2 a.m. with a few beers in you, with all her makeup on and all that. To win her for a relationship, you have to find her attractive at 9 a.m. the next morning. Um,
Yeah, very true. That attraction is absolutely the foundation of any relationship, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It's complete fake news.
it is the foundation. It's the first floor of a building. Now, yes, there are more floors, and it is not over half of the building. But without it, you cannot have the relationship. It is not over 50%, but it is that first 10% that is absolutely necessary.
I mean, I'd go more than 10%, but we're just splitting hairs at this point. We're talking about like the same thing. It
Yeah.
absolutely is the foundation that
Hmm.
totally need for the relationship to be fruitful. And, if either party's looks, and attraction slip, whether, the classic example is like, the wife puts on a bunch of weight and the guy doesn't want to have sex with her anymore. The girl says, oh, he's so distant now. This is terrible. And, this is where we end up. And,
Yeah.
divorce is shortly around the corner. It's like, no, he wasn't distant. You got fat and you didn't want to fuck you anymore. So,
Yeah,
and
and that goes, because you didn't have a frame set up, and inherently you notice something change in her habits, and you didn't get her back on track, or you notice something change in your partner's habits, and you did not get them back on track, and you have to be cognizant of that. People want to be led, especially women in relationships want you to lead them as long as you are a good leader,
yeah,
and
exactly.
you have to be
Exactly.
a good leader.
Yep, that is the caveat right there. It's like you need to be in a position of strength, and the woman has to respect you in order to love you. If she doesn't respect you, there's nothing you could do. And we were mentioning one relationship with a couple of friends of ours right now, and they fight constantly. They barely have sex. We've said many a time that the guy should have cut his losses long ago. But such is life. Again, like you can't save everybody, and you can't red pill your friends. So
Nope, it will be his zeroing out though. It is his first LTR. This will be his zeroing out, and I am almost excited to see him on the other side of it. I think he will have a lot more success. He's a decent looking guy. He has a good job, um, and he walks that asshole to nice guy line very finely, and I think he does a good job. Um, it's just a shame that he's in the position he's in, but we'll see him on the other side.
yeah, yeah, and we got another friend who's in a similar boat with that as well. And if they come looking for material and looking for advice, we're happy to give it. But you don't want to be just like you don't want to be like the libertarian at the house party. Talk about like the Fed and all that stuff. You don't want to be the red pill evangelist. Just walking around telling everybody, "Oh, I found the secret." Because people, as we mentioned at the beginning, when you're in like a state of pain, especially as a guy, then your brain is much more open to accept different modes of thinking.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree. You can't evangelize them. The latter friend you mentioned certainly has been resistant to that when I brought it up with him a few times. So we will wait and see, 2, 3 months from now when that comes crashing down, how that goes for him.
I'm going to be very interested to see how that particular relationship goes after this because, you know, I'd be interested if he looks back on certain things that you and I have made comments on, like in our own private spots, and he's like, oh, this is where like I fucked up. This is where I screwed up. This is where things could have changed. Or he might just like double down and not have like any self reflection at all. So I'll be very interested to see how that goes. But, as I mentioned before, I'm not holding my breath on this one. We'll see what happens.
No, no. And for brief context, for anyone listening, the issue is the current issue is a good friend of ours got a new job in a new city. He's been dating a girl for about 2 years, and she's not moving with him. She re-upped her lease in the city they're currently in, and it's a damn shame because it was a death knell. And I was actually hanging out with the two of them, and I casually, asked her what her plans are with moving. I was curious, and she
Mhm.
said she just re-upped her lease, and I don't even think he knew before she said it in front of him in that moment. And it was such a damn shame. The way she said it was just, that's what I'm doing. And it wasn't and we're gonna do this, this, and this to make it work. It was just a subtle thud. And I was like, that is the final nail in this coffin. And that is such a damn
Oh,
shame.
yeah. Yeah, she's been on her way out for a while, though, and as we mentioned before, she's gotten handsy with the 2 of us on multiple occasions, and stuff like that, but, you
Oh,
know
to just to be clear, we immediately disavowed. Red Hawk is not that much of a
Oh,
scumbag.
yeah. No, yeah, no, of course not. We would not take advantage of such situations, especially with one of our bros. But it is a dynamic that you pick up on. You're like, you kind of got to get a hold of your woman here, pal. Something's not this shouldn't be happening. But again, we'll see how it turns out. Let's take a look at this last one here that I
Yeah.
got saved for us. Oh, this is one for all of our British friends here. You know,
Oh, she has good teeth for British. Wow.
Oh yeah, wow. uh,
uh,
oh man, I don't know. This actually might be British Grand Prix. But she's got Foster's Italian stuff. Weird.
yeah.
Anywho, yeah, boy,
All the right ratios. Really thin, long legs.
yeah, I like that. This is for me. This is probably the most attractive chick we've seen.
Yeah.
Um,
No, she
yeah.
is. She is certainly gorgeous. Again, would as we all would, but.
Oh yeah, for sure. And again, very good ratio. Very good
Hmm.
ratio. And she's kind of got like shorter hair too, but again, that's not much of a problem because
No.
definitely very feminine looking. She's definitely very fit. But yeah, very very attractive girl.
Would you agree with my statement earlier that it's more about feminine hair than long hair? Would you agree with that?
Um, yeah. At this point though, like I just see like both of them like in my mind as being the same thing at this point, I
Hmm.
guess. Like whenever I see like short hair, I just immediately assume like, okay, you're a fucking feminist. Like
Yeah.
you're not doing anything with it. You're not being, you're not gonna be pleasant. You're not gonna be enjoyable to have around. So, kind of, your mind just always forms like, mental pathways, like, shortcuts as it were, and that's definitely one for me on
Hmm.
that point. But yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
but
Well.
but yeah, so good, very good looking woman. But what about I don't know, that blonde one was really good too. But
Uh, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's
it,
go back one real quick. Sorry, the one in the yep there. That to me that hair is feminine enough that even though it's shorter, I still like it. I think she's the example of
right,
that distinction I was drawing. Uh, Very
right.
feminine hairstyle.
Yeah, but then we get into the the area that we've also talked about on the sides. Like I'd have a hard time pulling that hair. You know.
Yep, yeah, it's a fair caveat there, but
Yeah, but
yeah.
definitely a good looking chick all around here. I mean, certainly a shitload better than these.
Hmm.
For sure. I mean, like, but on the same point of the hair though, like this chick is like some of the longer hair we've seen, but this hippopotamus body she's working on here is
Yeah.
not doing it for any of us. No
Nope.
way. No,
Nope.
vasectomy
No.
required. It's pretty much giving me a vasectomy just looking at it. Jesus.
Oh man. Oh man. Well, uh, Red Hawk, I think we're running a bit low on time, but I did want to say I really enjoyed this, and more than that, I really enjoy the conversations we always have. And as much as you may sometimes appear like a douchebag on Twitter, you are a phenomenal friend, and I really appreciate our conversations.
Damn, if I was gonna have Sims on this show, I invite like
There we
Mr.
go.
Simmons,
Here, I say one
here.
nice thing to
Yeah.
you, and you can't even take it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Well, I gotta establish the boundaries. You were trying to end my show, and stuff like here.
That's true.
Listen here, sir. Is that any way to treat, the most famous person on a personal level? Come on.
Oh boy, that's sadly may be true at this point. But no, I'm enjoying the success you're having, enjoying following along from the shadows of Twitter.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. All right. Well, we accomplished quite a bit on here. I'm gonna laugh looking in the comments on this one. I'm sure I'm gonna get flack from Lady of Shalott or maybe Dahlia or Albion will yell at me with the rank masculinity that's going on. But you know what? This is the man's hour. It's a man's locker room. We're talking about men things, and what is more manly than talking about tits and ass on a woman? So. Thanks for coming on, buddy. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely, I will. I'm sure I will come on in a couple months, and we continue with more base conversations. And the last thing I'll say is, ass is better than tits. Thanks, my man.
Yeah. All right. Cool, guys. And with that, only thing I will shill is that I'm hopping on a plane tomorrow out to Vegas for Freedom Fest. I'll be there until Sunday, so be sure to reach out to me if you're in the area. Maybe we could do a meetup. And then also follow me on Twitter and follow me on Substack. Man's Hour next week again is probably going to be on Monday because I'll be flying back. So be on the lookout for that. And until next time, be well, everyone.